I'm live. Perfect. I am live at last. Uh, right. Oh, hold on. No. Are we? Yes, we are. Good. Right. This week, I managed to actually get it sorted straight away. Uh, I've now worked out that if I want to do a live stream, I have to do it via. I have to set it up on my mobile because the last time I set it up, and this was the issue last week, is I set it up on the computer, and then when I tried to get the phone to link to the scheduled stream, it just wouldn't let me press the button. And that's why you were kept waiting for 10 minutes while I worked out how the hell I was supposed to go about getting past that. Turns out I can't. So if I want to start doing a stream on my mobile, I have to set it up on the mobile. And I think the same with another device like an iPad. If you're using an iPad as a screen, some people do, some people don't. But anyway, we have three people. Hello, guys. How are you? How was your Christmas? Seriously, it's been one heck of a busy week. Friends, family, and putting out videos. I don't know how other YouTubers cope. I think it's been a little bit quiet the last few days. I mean, I'm a subscriber to about 5 or 6 channels. I've tried to slimline it because I don't. Since I make my own videos these days, I don't have as much time to actually watch other people's videos. So yeah. Oh, Alex, I'm good. How are you, sir? Thank you so much for that video you sent me. Seriously, that was so nice of you. That is a wicked video. And I managed to, I didn't really notice the first time you sent me the two videos. I didn't notice they were actually virtually back to back, so I could actually merge them together. So I thought I'd put some subtitles on just to put my opinion on. But no, seriously, thank you for that, sir. I am not too bad. As I say, it's just been busy. It's been really hectic. I was sitting here at 8 o'clock, and I just done some editing for videos that you won't see for another month or so because I'm working 3 to 4 weeks in advance, particularly with what I'm doing with Beatrix. The focus videos are more on the day, so if I film it and edit it, it will go out in a few days, so that's more current. It's a bit weird. I'm getting all my continuity mixed up and everything. Good evening, Mr. Ben. How are you, sir? My regular viewer. How's your Christmas been? Dear me. If it's been anything like my Christmas, this year this is the first year since Christmas 2019 that most of my family have actually been together within the same roof like we used to. Even last year, because I've got quite a few elderly relatives, it's my family are going through a kind of phase where everyone's getting old, and there's no one really new. There's no kids coming into it. I've not got any kids, neither has my sister nor my brother. So things are not moving on there. But we've got quite a few elderly relatives who are kind of scared for, because of COVID and all that. They're a little bit wary. So we managed to get everyone together, which was busy. It was nice, but just tiring. My body clock is now out of kilter. No problem, mate. No, seriously, thanks to you. And if you do go to that scrapyard again, only take videos if you're there. Don't go out your way. Seriously, don't do that. Just if you're there, shoot a video, and I will be happy to share it on this channel. Maybe I should start a coup. Maybe I should get other people on this. If you've got something to film from a scrapyard with Focus Mark 1s or whatever, send it in. Send it in. Could be have you been framed, but not you being framed, just the cars. Mr. Ben, Christmas was good. Good. Yeah, mine was great. Mine was great. It was busy, but it was great. I say my body clock is a bit out of kilter at the moment. I was just sitting there at 8 o'clock, just flicking through the channel. I mean, I had literally an hour's time. I was just editing my own video, and I just had the TV on in the background, watching a few other YouTube channels, which I rarely get time for. I think I watched a couple on Christmas Day because that's the only day I've had the last couple of months where I've not even looked at what filming or editing or messing around with my own channel. So I caught up on Christmas Day. And how are you, sir? How are you, the odd one out? I'm all right. How are you doing? How was your Christmas, sir? Looking forward to the new year? Has everybody got their New Year's resolutions? If you've got a New Year's resolution which you would like to share, please put it down on here. I'm going to try and keep this live stream to about an hour today. As I say, I'm starting to feel it a little bit. My body's out of kilter, and I'm going back to work in next Tuesday, so I'll try and get my body clock back into routine. Tomorrow I'm supposed to be going out, but goodness me, I'm going to try and not stay out beyond 12 because otherwise Tuesday is going to be a killer. It will just knock on. Gone with the days where I used to go out regardless. I feel it these days more than anything. Literally, when I was, this was going back 10 years ago, I'd go out for a night out on New Year's Day with all my friends, get terribly drunk, come back, and you know what? I'd barely feel it. I'd barely have a hangover. Nowadays, well, at least, 4 months ago, when I last had a really good night out, only had a few drinks, came back, literally slapped myself on the carpet, on this lovely shagpole carpet, and I was just head spinning. Literally, the room was just spinning for about 6-7 hours, and I'd only had a few. So I really feel it when I go out today, not just with like the time factor. New Year's resolution, Mr. Ben, New Year's resolution, be less rubbish at everything. That is a very, very good New Year's resolution. So you're setting the bar quite low, which is a good thing, actually. No pressure then. You're putting no pressure. You're just keeping it nice and cool. I like that. I like that. Yeah, definitely. I try to be less rubbish at most things. And that's the way I actually progress. Strangely enough, I don't actually no, I'd say I'm pretty competent at most things. I have to be. I am. As of a couple of months ago, I am now a single person. Not that it wasn't. Not that a breakup of a relationship wasn't going to happen. Unfortunately, it was one of them relationships that just kind of fizzled out with my ex. Unfortunately, we're still good friends, but I'm quite an independent person. I was single for quite a few years. A good few years ago now. So I learned to do everything myself. So I have to be good at things. I have to be good at things. And I saw that scrapyard video today. My first thought, there are plenty of IB5 transmissions in those Mark 1 Focuses without any problem. Most likely, those IB5 units are actually, I don't think there's anything that goes wrong with them. Yeah, I don't think there's many things that go wrong with them. I don't think the cable adjustments can be a bit funny on them. They're supposed to be self-adjusting, but they can go out of true sometimes. But apart from that, and the MTX 75, there's nothing wrong with them. They're quite hardy. The only thing I would say is if you've got a 1.8 petrol Focus, an IB5 gearbox is at the limit of what it can handle, and a lot of people have gearbox failures. To be honest, if you've got a 1.8 Focus and you've got a gearbox issue with the IB5 and it's starting to crap itself, basically, I would literally throw the gearbox out and get an MTX 75, and then it will be a straight swap. There shouldn't be many things. It's the linkage that will be slightly different on them, but that would be a simple job. It's fitted to the 2 litre, which is exactly the same engine. So I don't know why they did that. I really don't know why. Maybe because they just wanted uh, a slightly more modern feeling gearbox, because the IB5 is a slightly younger gearbox. Um, I'm not sure exactly what the differences are, but I can imagine the MTX being a slightly more hard school, notchy gearbox. I've had that a few times actually, where people have said they're a bit notchy, but IB5s were actually, strangely, somebody messaged me because I'm now in the Rover 45 owners groups as well. They fitted, after 2003, Rover had to fit IB5s to their 25s and 45s, because apparently the Rover R65 gearbox, which BMW basically took when they sold the company in 2000, they basically took it. They took the designs, even though it was made in Birmingham, and they basically said, "Yeah, you can have the R65, but we'll sell it back to you for way more than what you were paying for it in the first place to have made." Their own gearbox, and they were being shafted by BMW to pay for it. So they said, "F off." So they had to go to Ford and get the IB5. So a lot of the post 2003 25s and 45s with the K series have an IB5, and no one has any complaints about that. Mr. Vent, yeah, sorry to hear about the breakup. I've been a little bit unlucky the last few years, to be honest with you, but it wasn't unexpected, put it that way. But we're still good friends. But she's not in a great place, and neither am I, to be honest with you, in that respect. Well, in terms of where I am, I'm feeling quite happy, and that's the main thing. But yeah, it is the way it is. I'm sure, well, 2023, New Year's resolution for me, I will actually say this now, because of the way the channel's going. And every morning I wake up and I click on the app, and literally about 10 more people have subscribed, which is unbelievable, because only a few weeks ago, I'd barely get 1 or 2 subscribers a day. I'd celebrate if I had an extra person. Now it's 10 a day, consistently the last few days. And that's averaging out. So 2023 is just to push the channel on, keep doing what I'm doing, and monetize the channel, which is unbelievable. My first video, ignore the P6 videos. My first video, which was basically to start the channel as a blog for my focus, was in March the 27th this year. That was 5 days after I went to the NEC. I went to the NEC restoration show, which I might be going to this year. I probably will, actually. It's a nice show. It's smaller, and I quite like that. And I quite like, you can imagine this from my videos, I like the nitty gritty stuff, the sort of the dirty side of owning older cars. I like car shows. I like glitz and glamour, and you have some of that at this show. That's where I like the balance. But you see the nitty gritty stuff of people actually getting to grips with the restoration side of these cars, and that's where I've learnt my skills and where I've basically got my motivation from. And then 4 days later, I start a blog, and then it's gone this way. So, you know, that's the main one. But just to continue what I'm doing, and I may add a third car to the fleet. I most likely will, because the Rover is starting to get better, and we're looking at an MOT, probably in a month from now. It depends. The problem is I'm going through the stage now where I'm digging into the car reluctantly, and I'm finding more things that are broken. So I've got a list, and it's adding up. Mainly because I want it done right, and I want it done proper. I did say that this car was going to be more of a rough and ready car, but the truth is, I would like to make it as good as I can make it without spending extortionate amounts of money, i.e. paintwork. And that's looking pretty good as well, to be honest. So those are a couple of things that I aim to do. Privately, I'm not looking for a relationship. So I've had that mindset for ages, and I'm afraid that might explain why I've gone a bit mad with the videos recently, because I'm not in a relationship. I have a little bit more free time, so I've managed to push this a little bit more. But no, I think I've gone back in the mindset of just focusing on me for a bit, and then if I meet somebody that catches my eye, then yeah, fine. Preferably somebody who likes cars, but that's quite difficult, as some of you can imagine. Had no idea Rover used the IB5. Yeah, they did. Reluctantly. This was when Rover was really desperate, but I didn't even know that until I started looking into it. But it is post 2003 models that have them. That can't be a bad thing. I mean, the R65 gearboxes are not bad things. They're actually decent gearboxes as well, but the IB5 is a much more, from what I've seen, a much more reliable unit. And I'd say that you get better feedback, because I think those old Rover gearboxes were a little bit on the notchy side. N, I'm not sure, but lifetime transmission oil should be changed after 200 miles, right? Oh, God, no. There's no such thing. Are you referring to the automatic? No. That lifetime is something a manufacturer refers to when they consider that their car is designed to last 10, 15 years. That's what they mean by lifetime. There's no such thing. I'm afraid whether it's a Focus Mark 1 or any car over 15 years old, it's outlived its life expectancy. Anything can go wrong. It's as simple as that. There's no such thing as lifetime. Anything from sensors to the ECU. An ECU can last forever, theoretically, but they don't. They sometimes, one day. I would 200. Do you have a car that's done 200,000? Because that's ridiculously high if that's an automatic. That oil should be changed, preferably every 30,000 miles. I changed mine when mine was 18 years old and it had done 86,000 miles. And when I dropped the pan, the fluid was quite clean still, but it was slightly on the dirty side. It was starting to turn slightly brownish. So it's gone from a pink to a slightly brown. Now, when it's brown, it's burnt, but mine was in between. So I think it was just old. And it smelt like the farm. It smelt like manure. It's a weird, I know it's weird, but it smelled like manure when it just came gushing out, because you've got no drain plug. You have to take all the bolts out and then take the pan off, and it all makes a mess. Less than a mess than I made of the Rover gearbox. That was a terrible mess. I literally took all the pan bolts out and I tried to get it off and it was stuck on. So I thought, do you know what? That should be okay. And I just went in the house quickly to get my chisel, and all I heard was clump. And I thought, N, what is more? New Year's resolution: get a new job, get a new love. What is more? Get a new job, get a new life. What's more difficult, or what's more? Either. Getting a new job. That's hard for anyone. The one thing that's given me stability at the moment is my job. Where I live and my job and my cars, they give me stability. And my family. I think I'm missing my family and my friends. I think they go above the tree, but hey. Once you've changed the gearbox fluid, it should be every 30,000 miles. Now I had to change the fluid again this year. I can't remember why I did that actually. Oh, I did it as a matter of course actually, because when I dropped the fluid, this was a couple of years ago originally, I filled it up. I drained it as much as I could after I just left it for a few days. I left the pan open and just let it drip into the drain pan for a few days. Now with automatics, you can't get a lot of it out. I managed to get about 60% of it out based on filling up my measuring jug with the fluid that I caught. and the rest is just stuck in the torque converter. You can't get it out. I know a lot of people say, oh, just turn the engine over and then it will spin out. That's terrible, because you've got literally a gear train that's dry. You don't want to be doing that with the clutches. I mean, transmission shops, they'll flush it. They'll literally they'll take the pipes off to the cooler. You've got the inlet and the outlet to the gearbox cooler, and they'll put a machine on that will pump new fluid in and suck it out at the same time. But often when you do that, it results in almost immediate failure. For some reason, old automatics rely on the friction material suspended in the fluid to do its job. And when you if you were to do that and completely flush the fluid, I know it sounds good, but some gearboxes, particularly ones at the end of their life, with clutches that are getting a bit thin, but they still work, they'll fail. They'll straight away fail, because there's no friction material in the fluid for them to do their job properly, to hold the clutch packs, the actual clutch packs, the actual gear train itself, the gears. But basically what I did was did a 60-40, so I knew there was 60% new fluid going in and 40% of the old stuff was still in there, so it was mixing. So I allowed it to mix, and and that's fine. That's basically a precautionary measure. So it's a good thing that you can't get all the fluid out. I think that is whether it's a deliberate design flaw of the gearbox or whatever. But basically this summer I changed the whole lot again. And basically I wanted to drop the whole lot, drain it as much as possible. I had a good air gun this time, so I blew a lot of it out. And I reckon I got about 70% of it out this time, which probably means that the rest of that old fluid is gone. Whatever's in that gearbox is completely new fluid. And I've had no issues at all. Let me know. We have 4 viewers. This is amazing. Now, I was very conscious of this because I originally put this this live stream for 8 o'clock, which is roughly a good time, and I thought it'd be a bit of a gamble putting it on tonight. I can't do it tomorrow because I'm busy tomorrow. I think everybody else is busy. Anybody else is doing a live stream, I'm out of it. And besides, I don't think I'd have much of an audience. I might have one person. So I did intend for it to be 8 o'clock, but then I saw we've got Matt Richardson, Furious Driving, who some of you may watch. I thought some of my subscribers might watch that. And I think he did a live stream about 7 o'clock earlier. So I thought, okay. And then I saw Alan Howitt's channel, and Alan's done a live stream, and I did tune into that live stream for half an hour. Celebrating 30 years of the Ford Mondeo, and I thought, oh, he's nicked my audience. What do I do about this? I can't do a live stream at 8 o'clock. I'm not going to compete. I've got to switch. I've got to move it over. So 10 o'clock. That's why I chose this time. Yeah. Has anybody got any news? Has anybody got a problem with their car, with their Focus? I do intend long term. I'm not going to be doing a live stream every Friday. I mean, I only planned to do this week out of pure instinct, really. I thought I'd add it in since it's been quite a good week for the channel. And I've been making the videos and they've been rolling out really quickly. But I would say bi-monthly. So there'll be 2 live streams a month. So it'd be once a fortnight. And one of them, I'm hoping, will be a sort of Focus because I specialise, and obviously I say I specialise in this area. I'm not a through and through expert, but I know what I know about Mark 1s, and it'll be a basic Mark 1 surgery. It'll be a doctor's surgery for Mark 1s. So if people have got any problems, as much as I can answer the comments, and I'm getting a lot of comments in the videos and I'm trying to get through all of them. If I can advertise a live stream as purely a drop-in for, oh, I've got this problem, how do I sort it, then I most likely will be able to give you a clear answer. I don't like messaging, because messaging and replying to a comment when somebody says, I've got this problem, how can you help? Like, I've had a lot of people saying about the door actuators from my short video where my doors aren't syncing up, and people saying, oh, I've got this issue. I can't really give clear answers in a comment. I prefer to actually speak. So that's where this would prove to be beneficial, really. Mr. Ben, what do you know about the Mark 1 Focus front suspension? I did a video on this not long ago. I think it was when I was actually working on the front, by the front rings. When I was tidying all that up for the body shop last summer. Last summer. Matheson strut suspension, fairly conventional, with bottom wishbones at the front. The wishbone is merely like a control arm. On older cars, because the wishbone sort of, you've got the bit that goes into the hub where you've got the ball joint, and then it goes to a rear bush and then another bush. So there'll be two inner bushes. Well, in older cars it used to be two, and actually the Rover 45 has got a similar system where the bottom arm is in two pieces. So you've got the ball joint going to one bush, and then you've got another separate arm going to another bush, whereas the front wishbones in a Mark 1, it's just one unit. So it's quite nice in that respect. The only thing I would say is, I've encountered this before, the ball joints can get knocked out, but if the ball joint, if the arm is so old that it's the original, if it hasn't been replaced by now, usually the inner bushes will go before the ball joint, strangely enough. Ball joints can get knocked out on these, but they don't suffer from as many issues as other cars. That's why both of mine were replaced. The ball joints, there was nothing wrong with the ball joints, the inner bushes had gone, and they were just moving. You get a crowbar and you could move the rear one backwards and forwards, literally. But apart from that, fairly conventional. There was a post earlier in the day on the Mark 1 group where someone had basically had the spring, presumably the original because it looked a bit old, it had snapped, and they do snap, and it snapped and gone straight into the tyre. He was lucky that he managed to get off like that, because that could have been serious at speed. But the springs, when they go pretty badly, and they do rust really badly, the original springs. The aftermarket ones I've got, I haven't got genuine springs at the front. Ford wanted £90 for one a couple of years ago. I was like, no. So I've got Killen, which is a very well-known make, and they're standard springs and they sit nicely, and there's not a patch of rust on them. After 2.5 years, not a sign of any pitting whatsoever. I can't say the same for the genuine ones. They all seem to have an issue there. But no, it's fairly conventional. I think the anti-roll bar is too thin. I think it's too thin to do anything massive at the front. I think the stiffness is in the shell. That's where you get your stiffness, not through the front anti-roll bar. I think the rear one is also too thin. I think both of them need to be a bit thicker. Just something I noticed. I'm not an engineer, but it just, comparing it with other cars. The greatest pain in an IB5, no drain plug. That sucks. I thought there was a drain plug. Or is that a filler plug on the side where you can take it off and you can now excess out? I thought there was a drain plug. Because in an IB5, you've got that plastic cover that basically covers where you've got your cable linkage goes in, and I was surely there's a plug in there that you use to drain it. I'm not so sure about that actually. There's fresh gearbox oil in my garage. First project in 2023. Gearbox oil change works fine after 200,000 miles, but I want new oil. Oh, so you're referring? Sorry, that post where you said lifetime. You're referring to the manual gearbox. Well, again, manual gearbox is no such thing. In fact, manual gearboxes, I would suggest changing the fluid more. Automatics tend to be driven quite conservatively, and they tend to last quite well in that respect. If you try and drive them like a manual gearbox, they won't last very long. But manual gearboxes, I would specify. it's easy to change the fluid on a manual gearbox. But most will have a drain plug somewhere. I'm sure it's on the side where you've got that plastic cover. Take that off, it just unclips off. And then there should be a drain plug and there should be a filler plug. Now you have, it's either a filler plug on the side or a filler plug up the top. I'm not sure which one. It's possible you got the drain plug, because I've never done it on this gearbox. And then there'll be another plug where you take you put the drain plug back in after you've drained it. Then you take the cap, the other drain, the filler drain above it. So that's open. And you keep filling it from the top filler until it starts coming out the top hole. And then as soon as it does, you put the top one back in, put the filler one back in, and you're done. I think that's how it works. Somebody was explaining how, because the PowerShift gearboxes, they use their own unique fluid. It's not automatic fluid and it's not manual fluid. It's sort of in between. And somebody was explaining how you actually fill that, and basically you've got two sides that you've got to equalize a little bit. It's a bit of a pain, and the oil is really expensive. It's like you have to put about 4 or 5 litres in, or maybe around that, and it's about 120 quid for decent fluid. Or it would be, I think it'd be less than that because this was genuine stuff, but that's a lot of money. Alex bought the ST170 rear suspension kit for mine today. Well done. I did tell you that's a good bet. If you can't get the standard stuff, I mean, when I bought my rear shocks, they were pretty much the last ones you can get hold of. I mean, I was looking at some decent aftermarket ones, but then I noticed that the foam had deteriorated, and you basically have a kit where you get the plastic cone and you get the foam as well. But that was like £24 for just the foam and the plastic cone on both sides, but £24 on top of the shockers, which was like, you're looking about 40, 45 aftermarket, decent aftermarket. And I added it up and it came to about, what, 75 quid for both? Whereas there was two, they were on offer. They were obviously trying to get rid of them. 2 genuine rear shockers with the foam. It all comes complete with the cone and the foam in one piece with new bolts. £40 each, so £80. So it was a no-brainer. So I'm not surprised that they're not obtainable now, but you won't notice very much. If you're putting standard springs on, if you've still got standard springs on the rear, Alex, you won't feel a difference. The only difference you'll feel is if you actually have the springs and the shocks for an ST, and then you've got an ST back end basically. Because on mine, I've got, if you've watched the rear suspension video, I've got ST rear springs. It doesn't look like it, and it doesn't, and I forget that they are, but normal shockers. So I don't really feel a thing. It's a slight bit firmer. When you go over a speed bump, you don't get that rebound. It's like the standard shocks, standard springs would rebound. I know that the dampers are working with it, but it'd be like, it rebound like 1.5 times, but now it's like 1 or just over 1. So you get that just slight difference. Yeah, they're easy. They'll be easy to fit as well, Alex. You have no problems. What I would suggest you do, I believe, at the top of the shock there'll be like a key where you like hold it with a hex key, and then you have to get a 10mm spanner at the same time. So you have to hold it and then turn the spanner to get the nut off the shaft, because otherwise they'll turn at the same time. The old shocker will turn with the nut. So you have to hold it, but that's the only faff about it. And you can do it with the car on the ground. You can do it with the car on the ground, but you have to, once you've done the top, sort the top out, tighten that back up, and then when you're putting the bottom bolt back in, you've got to sort of push the shock up and then line the bolt in. That's a bit of a faff. So sometimes you might want to jack it up so it's at ease, but either way, really. Mr. Ben, the drain on the IV5 is the reverse detent, apparently. Oh, is that right? I didn't realise that. Oh, something new. Um, no, I say I don't know. I mean, I only know what I know about these gearboxes. I never actually worked on one, but I've seen a few people work on them. I've driven one with an IB5 briefly, and I like them. But I'm pretty sure you've got two holes. You got a drain, and then you got a filler level, and then you got a filler. That's the way most gearboxes tend to work. But right, sorry, I've got confused over that. You can drain through the reverse detent. It may not be advisable. Okay, I see what you mean. Okay. Well, that's weird. I'm gonna have to look that up in the manual now. Is that an actual procedure that they specify? Oh, you did it on yours, right? If it works, then it works. That's the main thing. Doesn't really matter. The ends justify the means. Oh, how did it make much of an improvement changing the gearbox oil? Um, I actually have a story about that. I mean, this is on a completely different car. This is my ex's car now. I wouldn't say my girlfriend. My ex is now my friend. She has a Peugeot 207, which I bought for her. I managed to get it for 400 quid pre-COVID. No, it wasn't pre-COVID. No, it was October 2020. Pre second-hand car shoot up prices. Mm. Try getting that for 800 now. And basically, there was a problem. The ball joint got knocked out on the bottom wishbone. I knew what it. No, it wasn't the ball joint. No, the spring had snapped. It wasn't the ball joint. Sorry, that was later on. The spring had actually snapped. We were going along, and we just heard a clunk when we went round the corner. And I thought, what the hell is that? I thought it was a ball joint. Turned out the whole spring had snapped. But luckily, it was being held quite nicely on the shocker itself because it's Matheson. It's Matheson strut as usual. And basically, I did the whole job. The problem is I made the rookie mistake of actually I took the hub nut out. I managed to knock the strut off the hub. You have to. It's a pinch bolt like on a Focus Mark One. Take the pinch bolt out and whack it off. You have to get a chisel because it's really tight. It seizes on. Um, but I can't remember what I did, why I did it. But I took the drive shaft nut out to give me some play to actually get the hub off the strut. And what I ended up doing was the drive shaft was still kind of stuck, half stuck in the hub at the time, and it pulled out the gearbox. And all I heard was a oil everywhere, gearbox oil everywhere. I thought I'd ripped out the seal. I hadn't. I was just lucky that I hadn't taken out the seal. It's not a hard job, but it's just more of a job. And my girlfriend was a bit tight at the time, so I had to try and keep the cost down. But that was my mistake, and I got some new oil. And I said, well, we might as well just change that now since the gearbox has pretty much drained itself. Did the whole job, put new fluid, new oil in, filled it up to the oil level, and when she drove off, now my girlfriend always complained. I never actually drove the car, strangely. She always complained that the clutch was really high. Now I just thought that was a Peugeot thing, but when she actually drove off and we did a test drive, she said, "What have you done? The clutch, the clutch biting point is low. What have you done?" I said, "I haven't done anything. I haven't changed anything. I haven't messed with the clutch at all. All I've done is change the oil." Now, I never knew that changing gearbox oil can actually change the clutch biting point. Now, all I can assume is that oil, which didn't look too bad, must have had so much dirt and friction. Because if you've got dirt and wear in it, and you've got metal particles, presumably that creates friction. And that friction in the gear train might mean you need to apply more clutch. You need to lift the pedal up in order to engage the clutch a little bit more to get the gears moving. I assume that that's why it was acting like that. I never knew that was the case, but hey, so changing your gearbox oil can change your clutch biting point. So if you've got a high clutch and a Focus, which that should not be the case, change the oil. Proceed, Mr. Ben, sorry, I've been rabbiting on. Mr. Ben, procedure in the manual is to remove the drive shafts. Really? I'm looking that up. That is bad. I've never heard of that. Changing the fluid made absolutely no difference on mine at 110. Nothing at all. That's really strange. That's a lot of effort for no change. Clear. I mean, what state was that? Why did? How come you did the oil change? Was it acting up? Was there something that you weren't quite happy with, or did you just do it as per service, as a service interval? Quite clearly, then, if there was nothing wrong with it before, then you won't really see a change. That's what I would take from that. If there's no change, then there wasn't really much wrong with it in the first place. And now some things we kind of assume that, oh, I'm not quite happy with that, or we think something's not quite right, and we mess around with it, change the part or change the oil, and it doesn't make the slightest bit of difference, and you think, oh, it's just in my head. These things happen. I think it is you three guys I have. Just you three. Well, you are my regular subscribers. Going forwards, yeah, as I was saying, I will be doing a Mark 1 surgery every so often, probably once a month. Hopefully that will happen as I get more subscribers. But I need to start picking a better time to do my live streams. At the moment, my channel is small fish compared to some, but I'm hoping to just keep rolling what I'm doing, and then we'll go from there. The scrapyard videos are brilliant, so yeah, I'll see if I can go to my local one again. They've had a few new cars in, but I'm not sure whether they've got any focuses in, because they usually post it on a Facebook page, and I'll know if there's any focuses in there. There was a collection one ages ago, and I believe somebody local to me had the front bumpers. They literally, I think I'm sure he took the front bumpers, because he's modified his Focus. There's a local person to me who's got a Mark 1.8, and he's modified the front bumper. I think it's a collection, and I don't think the rear's a collection. I think the rear's a standard. Mr. Ben, I changed it as I thought the input shaft bearing was a touch noisy. It was before. Hold on. So I've got to read that again. Sorry, I'm getting a bit fuzzy-headed. I changed it as though I thought the input shaft bearing was a touch noisy. That could be a concentric slave, possibly. Sometimes that can be the case. It was before. It is still 30,000 miles later, still the same basically. A neighbour had one only 70,000 miles that sounded the same. Oh really? Oh, so maybe that's a weak point then. That would be a gearbox stripped down job. I've got to be honest with you, if I had a car with a manual gearbox with that sort of problem, I would actually be tempted to take it off and strip it down, because that's just who I am. And to be honest, manual gearboxes can be stripped down quite nicely. Getting a new bearing put on won't be too much of a faff once you've got it on the bench. It's just getting it off. I'd have to go and get the only tool I don't have. Transmission jack, the ones that are like a scissor lift, and a crane, an engine crane. I don't have either of them, so I might look to doing that myself going forwards, but I'd definitely be tempted to take it off if it was me. But if it's done that consistently 30,000 miles later, but it still works, I wouldn't worry too much about it as long as it keeps working. They all make funny noises. A lot of things make funny noises on Mark 1s, and there's some things about mine I don't like, but I can't really do too much about it. Although I'll tell you what, that stretch belt is amazing. Not one peep, not one squeak. Heated screen, bam. Ironically, though, actually, I haven't used the heated screen. I haven't used it intentionally since I changed the belt. It was only before when we had all that cold weather, typically. Yeah, so New Year's resolutions. My intention is, well, one, to monetize the channel, to keep consistently making these videos, and the other one is a new car. I don't know, a third car. It depends what crops up, and it depends what position I'm in financially. I'm going to get a garage February time. It looks like, because January looks like it's going to be a backlog with parts. I've got this Bank Holiday Monday, at the end of it, I've got a list that I need to order for the Rover, and I'm hoping to literally get it all sorted within a month or so. So any chance of getting a garage or financing one? No chance. So February will be when I get the garage, hopefully, and then I'll have storage for God knows how many tools I have and resources, so I can actually clear this flat up. It's not a massive flat, and maybe put one of the cars in there, but I have to see which one, because the Focus has got its MOT in Feb, and the Rover might have its MOT at the same time at this rate, which would be that'll be tricky. That would actually, having two MOTs. Mr. Bent, the noise is only slight, better in warm weather, worst when it's cold. Apparently it's a common problem. I won't worry about it then. If it's a common problem, then you're not alone, and clearly it's not something that's going to go anytime soon. It does sound like a wear issue, because in the cold it shrinks, there's room to rattle, and then as soon as it expands with the heat, or in warmer weather, it would stop making that noise. Better in the warmer weather. So it doesn't quieten down when the car gets hot. So let's say you would take it on a long journey, and then just before you park up, you don't hear anything. N, I would like to break into a Ford museum, get a Mark 1 Focus, and be happy forever. Get a new Mark 1 Focus. You know what? I think it's the Ford Heritage Collection. That's the one that I would like to pinch one from. And you might have the same idea. We've got a Ford Heritage Collection in Dagenham, and they have an Aquafrost Mark 1, and it's absolutely gorgeous. I think it's the first one. I'm sure it's the first one that they actually registered in this country. I know there's another channel. I can't remember the name of the channel. Chubbs or something. And he's got a Mark 1 Focus, probably an early September registered one, Aquafrost 1.6. Was it? Yeah, is it? Yeah, it is a 1.6 silver top. And he put a few videos out. He hasn't put another video out since. I know he's got a Mondeo as well, so he's obviously into his Fords. But I think that's one of the earliest surviving Focuses in this country, anyway. Oh, goodness me, I'd like an early one, simply because it would give me something to compare it to. See, having a 2002 model, I see some of the cost cutting. The cost cutting was pretty bad. I think I spoke to somebody ages ago who actually worked for Ford, and he says 2001, 2002, Ford were initiating lots of cost cutting measures to all their cars, including the Focus, which was having a bit of a midlife reshuffle. They did the facelift in October 2001, and with the facelift they dropped a lot of things. The seats, now I could show you this because I've got some seat covers up there from a pre-facelift, leather seat covers, and they've got thick foam in them. The ones in my car, being a 2002 car, no, there's no foam. It's literally a cover and the tiniest finished bit of material ever. which sits obviously on top of the heated element on the cushions. They skimped on a few things. The little vents on the edges of the dashboard, the little triangular vents on the edges, there's two of them. The earlier ones have 4 slots and are made of much nicer plastic. I think I've got them up there, strangely enough. I've got a lot of parts I'll probably show you anyway. And the ones that I've got in my car, being a facelift, or any facelift car, will have 3 slots, and the plastic is much more thinner. Little things like that. In terms of the engine bay, silver top to black top, so aluminium cam cover, plastic black, that's the usual. The sound deafening, they deleted a lot of the sound deafening. There should be sound deafening along the top trim. So if you've got on a 3-door, it'd be on the B pillar. You've got a big piece of trim on the I think the 5 doors, it's almost the same, and you'll have a bit of foam on the inside. My car doesn't have the foam, and it's never been messed with in that way. But most cars do have this thick foam. I don't have that, so there was a lot of cost-cutting measures. I'll have to do a video on that, of how many things that weren't quite as good about the later cars and the earlier ones. And I think the carpets, the underlay was thicker, and I think the carpets were made of much more thicker material as well, the actual carpet that you actually put your feet on. It is this recycled stuff. I hate it. I've got the same stuff in the Rover, because I think they started cheapening them out as well. They used to have pile plush carpets, and then on the later ones they put the same stuff as Ford have been using with this recycled. Ugh, it's horrible. Mr. Ben, it's better when the engine is warm but quieter overall in the summer rather than winter. Sorry, it's taking me a while to sink in here. I seem to be half dazed. It's better when the engine is warm but quieter overall in the summer. Okay. Yeah, it does seem to be, it's an expansion issue, just a wear issue. Anything that wears, there'll be a gap in tolerance, and then obviously the heat will possibly take up that gap a little bit. I've got this similar thing. One issue that I have with the gearbox in my car, the automatic gearbox, is that if I start the car, and it's always been like this, if I start the car from cold and drive off immediately, go through the gears, it will flare between second and third. And when I say flare, it will slip. There'll be a bit of slipping. So the res will shoot up, but it won't go into third, and then it will go into third. And that's what we call a flare. Ish like that. And then after that initial flare, it will go into from second to third perfectly fine. No problems. Just one flare and that's it. What I have been doing for years is when I start it up, I have to wait a few minutes. So I wait 3 minutes and then I drive off. Bit of a pain, but at least I don't have to hold it in a low gear, so I don't have to do second to third. I wait a few minutes. It's barely warm. Even after a few minutes, the engine's barely warm, and the gearbox will be the same. But literally, if I drove off after a few minutes, no problems. It will go from second to third like that. No problems, no flare, no nothing. The difference between a flare and no flare is 2 or 3 minutes. Now, I can only conclude that is a clutch pack that's never been quite in tolerance, and given a few minutes to expand with the heat, it takes up that little bit of gap, that little lack of tolerance, and then it latches onto the next gear quite nicely. That's all I can say. It's minute things when it comes to gearboxes and things expanding and contracting, but as long as it still works, I don't mind. So that's all good. That's all good. What year is your car, Mr. Ben? Coming back to what I was saying, in my head, I would like to start literally a Mark 1, not a graveyard, but not even a breakers, but just a place where, exactly like Project Nigel, if you've ever watched his Rover stuff, which is a channel itself, and basically I would run it exactly like that. I would buy Mark 1s that are literally going to go to the scrapyard anyway. I literally go out there, buy them, put in a yard. If they're going to be scrapped, I'd rather have them so I can take bits off them and help the community as a whole, and keep these cars going forever. Because breakers, they don't tend to hold on to them, even though Mark 1s are good for parts and they can be quite profitable. I find that breakers are very quick to move them on, way too prematurely, and so much stuff is going to the breakers. And the weird thing is, with parts, it's the stuff that it's the stuff that doesn't break usually, but when somebody has that part and it's broken, they can't get hold of one second hand, because all the focuses have gone to the scrapyard with those parts that supposedly don't break. So I would take all the parts, even the bits that don't usually break. Like, the wiring is superb. You never get wiring. I rarely have I heard about broken wires on a Mark 1 Focus. The only bit that breaks is where it goes through the loom into the tailgate. That's the only bit of the car that breaks. That's the only bit I would recommend you get, a loom. If you want to keep a Mark 1 long term, have a spare loom. So where they basically, it'll be the loom where it connects above the headlining, and it will be the entire loom that goes into the boot. Mr. Ben, mine is a 2003 on an 03 plate. I guess it's fair enough that these cars have had a bit of wear here now after 20 years. Yeah, pretty much. It depends entirely how they're looked after, though. I mean, if you've got a car with really good service history and it's been stamped, that's worth its weight in gold still today. Oh, the days where you could actually see these cars come from a time where you've got, presumably you've got the handbook, because I've got the whole thing in my car. When I bought mine, it literally had the case, that little case with the little zipper with the Ford logo on it, and inside will be the audio guide. There'll be the handbook itself. There'll be an air conditioning leaflet. I think it's the heating and ventilation leaflet. And you'll have the service history as well, the service booklet. And if that service booklet has got stamps in it, you're laughing. That's the first thing I looked at when I bought mine. It had full service history from brand new, every year on the dot. And to be honest with you, that engine oil that's in the car now, it's been in there 18 months. I've got to change it, but it's still clean. And it's because the whole thing is so clean. When I did the timing belt and I opened the can, that's the first sign of how well an engine is being looked after. How dirty is that oil? Is there black deposits on the sides? Is it a bit carbony? And it was clean as a whistle. I didn't need to do anything. That's just a sign of pure maintenance. But the book, I love the fact that these cars come with a service stamped book. Nowadays, it's all online. Like you 10 years from now, when you've got all these new Focuses and Fiestas that are coming out now, when they're on the second-hand market, and God help me, if they reach 10 years old, if they're still around in 10 years, the cars that are made today, if they're here in 10 years, that'll be incredible considering the complexity. But they will have, like, it's all based on the internet now. It's all like an online service history thing. I think you have all these places popping up where you pay a subscription to upload like a car history. So photographs, videos and invoices, and you could put it all on there like in one big portfolio. Just think, oh, what is wrong? Honestly, what is wrong with people just keeping a blooming binder? That's the binder I have for my car. Literally, a leather binder. And of course, you've got to have a brochure at the front, but literally all that. Most of that, I'd say about that much is what I had with the car. I didn't have much paperwork, but I had full service history, and I've just added to it every invoice. That is better than anything online. Although I argue, if I was to sell Beatrix in the future, which might be possible, but I'm getting attached to that car. the best advert for that car is this channel. I would just say, look, that's the price. That's the price I want for it. It's a well-known car from a YouTube channel. Go and watch the videos. You'll see what I've done on it. And that's the best advert for any car. But that, as I say, not everybody does that. But the Bellamy. Hiya, buddy. How are you? How was your Christmas, sir? Have you got anything planned for the new year? And what's your New Year's resolution? We've just been discussing that for the last hour, of which I said that this stream would end in an hour, but it's going nicely. I'll probably stop in about 15-20 minutes or so, he says. But yeah, honestly, paperwork, anything like that is just worth its weight in gold, and that service history was standing in good stead. I think the biggest advice on a Mark 1, if you're going to view a Mark 1 straight away, I mean, you do it with any car. Yes, you look at the bodywork. I think my eyes will be looking at the sills and the rear arches in particular, because that's a make and break for a start. And I think that is, unfortunately, it's what separates the ones that are going to be broken. And there's plenty out there that are going to be broken very soon. You only have to go on eBay and there's about 10-20 of them that have been broken for bits and pieces all over the place. And that video that Alex sent in, I can't believe how many there are in that scrapyard at one time, and some of them don't even look that bad. I mean, I couldn't really tell too much glancing, but some of them, judging from the way some of them looked, I'm looking at the rear arch lips. If I can see bubbling there, it's absolutely no. But if I can't see anything there or on the lips, that's a good sign. But they can still be rotten. But it's a good sign just at a glance from what I could see. But some of them, I mean, that 3-door, that had been messed around with. That had an aftermarket steering wheel on it as well, the 3-door. And they're very sought after now. I know, I mean, obviously somebody went in there with the trim. By the look of things, somebody had taken the door cards off and quite a few other bits. And what I've said to quite a few people, if you have a 3-door, make sure you have some spare door cards, because they get sunburnt, they get damaged, and they're very long. And there's a piece of trim that goes along the window. It sits against the window. It's plastic and it cracks. Mine are cracked in them, but those door cards are far better than my old ones. But what they do, they sort of balloon. They either swell or they go a bit funny, the door cards. They really are not great. So everything beyond the dashboard is the same for all models, but everything beyond the dashboard on the 3-door is completely different to the 5-door. Everything, including the seats. I know you've got the pull handles, but the actual frames are different, completely different. It's not like a case that you can swap things over and mix and match. Only the rear seats actually are. The only thing you can swap from a 3-door to 5-door inside the interior is obviously ignoring the dashboard, because you can do that anyway. It's the rear seats. The rear seats are the only things that are identical to what's fitted at the front. Even the bits of trim where the seat belt, the rear seat belt's going to, that little bit of trim that the seat belt goes through, they're different. They're different, because I had a broken one and I got one off a 5-door from the scrapyard, paid for it, and realised it's a completely different size. And rust is our greatest enemy. The cheap bolt sets, bushing sets for a rear subframe, but if that's rotten, game over. Yeah. I mean, it's not totally game over. It depends how deep your pockets are and how much time you want to spend on the car. Apparently, you can now get brand new subframes. In the UK, Euro Car Parts they've got a brand called Starline. I think it's one of their budget, their sort of economy brands. But apparently, that manufacturer are actually making brand new rear subframes. Brand new, with the exhaust hanger in the right place, fully applicable for Mark 1. And I'm thinking I would have probably gone down that route if they'd have been around a couple of years ago when I did mine. But realistically, to do the back end properly, you need to have it all off the car. You need to drop the frame all in one go. I'd suggest basically you take all the arms off the subframe and then you drop the subframe separately. I know people drop it all as one, but I actually tend to do all the bottom arms and everything, take all that off when the car is on situ. Because I find if you've got the subframe off the car and then you're trying to get the bottom arms off, you're going to find it hard. Some things are better done when it's actually on the car. Mr. Ben, mine has rust on the rear arch lips, need to get it sorted out. It depends how bad it is. Is it to a point where, you know, in one of my videos, when I went to the scrapyard, I literally put my hand on the lip of one and just went clunk. It came off of my hand. It was that sort of bubbly where it looks like it could go if you stabbed it with a screwdriver. That's probably where it needs cutting out. I've seen a lot of Focuses with really awful jobs, patchwork jobs to the rear sill and the rear lips, where the body shop has literally cut a patch and welded a new piece of metal on the sill on the end of it where it all goes, and they literally haven't grinded it back. They've just sprayed it matte. It looks awful. I saw a white Focus with a black patch, literally. I just think, okay, you get what you pay for, but as the customer, what's the point in doing that job if you're not going to make it look decent? I mean, I'd just not be happy with that. I mean, I still think you'd pay a good £100–150 for that sort of job, maybe 200, to have it welded in that manner, because it can be a bit fiddly. If you start cutting into it, you'll start finding more rot in the inner sills, and then that's... If you don't cut it all out, it will creep back. Now, I haven't had my sills done. When I had my car resprayed last summer, they found two pieces of rot. One that had been fitted previously, strangely, before I bought the car. And that was in the middle of the sill, and then the bit at the end of the sill that I knew that was going. And they've plated over them, and they've cut as much out as possible. There is a little bit of creeping rust in the inners, but it's only surface at the moment, so I've treated it, and I think it should be okay. But the sill is literally packed full of Dinitrol. The cavity wax, I literally just packed it when I got the car back. It's not crumbling, just annoys me. Well, that's fine. Then that's cosmetic. I just monitor it, keep an eye on it, because when they start getting a bit fuzzy, the rust can creep in quite quickly. Mine were fuzzy for years, particularly the driver's one that I had done. And the body shop, when I went to collect it, the body shop, and I took a look at it, and it's absolutely, oh God, it was like smooth as hell. I put my finger on it, and I must have just been doing this for like a few minutes out of pure amazement, because that lip was just all bubbly and it was horrible before. And he said, have you put a new arch lip on this or something? He said, no, we just ground it back. It was just a bit fuzzy. We ground it back to good metal. There wasn't much. It was mostly bubbling rust that had just expanded like a 20-time fold that they do. A bit of rust killer, and we've prepped it properly. All good, and it's still like that to this day. I kiss me. Honestly, every time I saw the car, I look at it all the time. It's just, really nice. And that's what you want. So it's not the end of the world. A good body shop, if that is not gone, then it can be resprayed quite nicely. I mean, if you're quite competent. I mean, I didn't want to do this myself because I knew I'd want to pay someone to do it, since I was having that side done. But if there was nothing else wrong with that side of the car, I would have a go at sanding it back. Get a multi-tool and sand it back as best as you can. And if it's just the lip itself, the inner lip, and not the outside bit where you can see, I'd just spray it up. I'd get put tape all around the arch to make sure it doesn't flick off anywhere like paint does. And once you've got a nice smooth surface, I'd paint it and lacquer it, and it should be good. Sills on mine have not needed welding yet. Yeah, they all will, unfortunately. They all do. As much as I thought my sills were solid, they weren't at all. But it's if they're in the top, the sort of the top condition, then you'll probably just need bits and pieces cutting out of it. Usually at the rear, but it will only be like little pieces of metal. They always go eventually, unfortunately. It's just one of those things. But touch wood that you just prolong it as far as you can, because welding is expensive, and yeah, you don't want to do that if you don't want. You don't have to. So. The Bellamy, they always start going under the boot handle where the number plate lights are on. Mine just started to go, 22-year-old, and it's the only rust it has. Are you sure about that? When people say my Mark 1 has only got this little bit of rust, I think you haven't checked enough. They can they hide their rust in some really funny places, but they do go. You are right. They do tend to go around the boot handle. Is that under the boot handle where the lights are, where the number plate is? Because mine actually bubbled there. Because I obviously, before I took it to the body shop, I had to take all the handle off, and I discovered mine was starting to bubble out a bit under the plastic itself. They tend to go. I'll tell you where they tend to go. I was actually thinking of, you know, where you got the back window and it goes into a V just in the middle, right? Where you've got your wiper, and then you've got this V. Water will go into that V, and if you don't clean that area, you will get rust just between the V and the badge. That's where they tend to go. Very funny place. Not all of them go like that if they're washed, but if they're not washed, or there was a paint defect from the factory, which there could have been, that's where they tend to go. And the fast method: take your car to a body shop, buy new swing arms with bushings, cut the old C's ones off, all of them, build in new parts, good to go. Reciprocated saw is the proper tool. I've used them saws before. I've got one, but I don't think it's powerful enough to cut bolts, but it is good because they don't create sparks, not near a fuel tank. Luckily, I didn't have to cut any of my bolts off. I was very lucky. My subframe, remarkably, has still got all its welded studs, which is great. It's not the end of the world. You just have to be very careful if you have to cut them welded studs off, that you don't cut too much into the subframe. Otherwise, the nut that comes with the bolt, it'll be a bolt and nut kit. That won't sit flush against the subframe if you've cut at an angle. So you've got to make sure you cut really straight. That's why the bottom one, the bottom bolt next to the hub and the back of the disc or the drum, that's the one that's difficult to get to, because you've got the shock bolt that comes through, the bottom shock bolt, and then you've got that little welded nut. Now, if you want to cut that one off, you've got to take the disc off, or the drum. You've got to take the whole backing plate off and get it all off, because otherwise you're not going to get in there with a grinder. Even a small, those little 12-volt grinders, I think they're really great things, but getting in there is difficult. And I think a reciprocating saw would be difficult. I've not tried an air saw on things like that. I've used an air saw to cut brake lines and fuel lines before. That's what I found that good for, because they get no sparks. And brake fluid is just as flammable as fuel. But yeah, that's kind of the way you do it. Having it on ramps really helps. I would, if you know what you're doing, or if you've got somebody to help you knows what you're doing, I would definitely take the car to a place where you could rent a ramp. There are places, there are garages that will rent you a ramp for a couple of hours for a fee, and you can get the whole thing done. Now, if you wanted to do it quickly, and you add all the parts, new subframe, new bottom arm, new control arms, new trailing arm bushes, and what am I forgetting? New shock, possibly, new spring, maybe. If you had all them bits, then you could literally swap it off in a couple of hours. Like, trust me, it'd be that simple. It'd be a two-person job, but that would be where renting a ramp would be better. How long are we going for? 1 hour and 15 minutes. Okay. Yeah, that's kind of how I would sort of put it. So I'm half asleep today. I'm not entirely with it. Yeah, the time is catching up with me. My intention is, as soon as I switch off in a few minutes, I am going straight to bed, and I'm going to try and get up early in the morning because my body clock is just all over the place at the moment. There will be I won't be doing any specific content on the Focus not as frequently as what I've been doing, only because I've had time during the Christmas period to bung out the videos that I've managed to put so many out. So it'd be possibly once a week. I'll always have something, and at the moment, I think the video is going out tomorrow. But basically, I'm doing a trial and error basis on what is causing the fuel trims, the long-term fuel trims in my car. It's quite high. It's on the rich side, -15. Now I want that lower, and I'm going to try a few things to see if I can get it near zero, because that's where it should be. It's overfueling for some reason, and a few people have pointed me in the right direction, and I've tried a few things already, but I'm going to go through a load of things that I've got. So I've got a MAF sensor, a genuine one that I can swap. I've got a genuine throttle position sensor, which is somewhere. I've got a few. I've got an aftermarket one, but apparently they're rubbish. I have, and this is extreme, I have another fuel pressure regulator which I could swap over, and we'll see what that difference that makes. I am going to swap all this over individually so we can see if it has any effect on the fuel trims, just for quite an interesting little test, to be honest with you. But I also have a spare injection rail, a complete rail with four used injectors. I will swap the whole rail over and see what that does, because it could be one leaking injector. I'm not going to keep faffing and changing the injectors just to see if the one's leaking. I'll literally just take the whole rail off and swap it for the other one. And those are the main areas that I want to be looking at. So that's a little series that's going to be happening soon, because the car doesn't really need any work at the moment, but this is a little thing that I've discovered from my scanner video that I kind of think I want to sort that out, and it'll be interesting to see the effects it has of putting other second-hand items on. I mean, I could try and put some aftermarket ones on, but I'd know they wouldn't work properly. I have up there, I've got 4 air control valves. Do not ask me why I've got that many, but one of them is an aftermarket one. It looks nice and new compared to the others, but it never worked quite as well as a genuine one. I remember it always, every time I started the car, you switch it on and the revs will go to about 3,000 RPM, and then take a couple of seconds to drop to about 1,1200, where it should be a fast idle on a cold start. Never understood why it did that, but they do act up in weird ways. Apart from that, it was okay, but it's not as smooth as an original. I put an original back on, a tatty old original, secondhand from the scrapyard. I have cleaned it up now, as you've probably seen. I gave it a bit of a clean up. Worked perfectly fine. Start the car and it will just jolt to about 1,500 on the start, and then settle to 1,300. And that's how they should start a Focus Mark 1. It should jolt to about 1,500 and then go back to 13. If it's going up to 2,000, I argue that your valve needs cleaning out. The Bellamy, yeah, it's coming through under the plastic handle. It's brown streaks running down sometimes. The bright work is rust free, otherwise, as far as I can see, it's not the. See, that's great. I mean, that's, to be honest with you, that's more than some, because usually they rot under the bottom of the front wings. They can rot where the front wings meet the bumper. I don't know if you saw in Alex's video, but there was a Mark II Focus with exactly that area of rust where it just literally gone through completely. I've never seen a Mark II that bad. Mark Ones usually go there. So if there's no actual rust visibly, at bottom of the doors as well, that's another one. They also rust under the door mirrors. Mine had that problem before it went in the shop. I think the passenger side has also gone that way. So I could show you that sometime. But they go under the mirrors as well. So if it's relatively rust free from the bright work, that's nothing that is under that number plate. I mean, brown streaks, I argue, can you polish that out? Is that when you wash it? Because I know that rust streaks can be permanent if you don't polish them. You see all that. You see all that old transits with all these rusty hinges and all that, and it's just raining brown streaks of rust down the white doors, and it's like, oh, I just want to polish that away. I'm yet to take the trim covers off yet, as it's a pre-facelift. Automatic X-Reg with 52k. Sorry, I know it looks as if I've got a bit of padding on. I just realised that on camera. It's because I was outside working today in that cold, and I've got a heated jacket on, and I'm still wearing it. And this heated jacket, it's like a waistcoat, and it gives me the impression I've got flipping man boobs. I haven't, honestly. I'm yet to take the trim covers off yet. It's a pre-facelift. Oh, okay. Right. The trim covers can cover up all manner of sins. That's the one thing I actually prefer on the facelift, is the fact that you can see immediately if there's rot. There's no covers. It's there, and they can be cleaned quite easily. Whereas the ones with the trim covers, people don't get the covers off to clean under them, and the covers can hold so much mud, particularly at the front and the rear. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's something there. I don't want to worry you. I don't want to make you feel like, oh my God, I've got to get it off now because Andrew says it's rotten. It might not be, but it's just to be aware that that might be the case. Yeah, I'd say that's something I don't like about the pre-facelift models. They really do hide quite a bit of all manner of sins. I don't like the sill trims either. I think they look really bulbous on a pre-facelift. They stick out a long way, and I just think, I don't like them. If that was one thing they got rid of on the facelift to cut costs, it was a good choice. Really good choice. I don't think there's many things about the pre-facelift that I don't really like versus the facelift. I think the facelift is more in keeping with the new Edge design. The way the front is, particularly on, if you've got the fog lights, you've got the fog lights, you've got the body mouldings, you've got the headlights with the integral indicators, instead of the indicators being down in the bumper on the pre-facelifts. I just don't like that. I think the indicators are on the pre-facelift, they look a bit like an afterthought, like they just smacked them on the bumper and they didn't really have an idea where to put them, until some clever clogs, whoever he was, thought, why don't we just put them in the headlight and integrate it? That's perfect. What a great idea. And the fog lights, I don't like the round, the sort of oval shaped fog lights. I just think they look as if they've just been smacked on as well. No. Mr. Ben, all this talk of rot is exactly why mine is off the road for winter, but I'm missing it. That is the problem. The thing is, Mr. Ben, it depends on how much money you have, i.e. for another car, because that's what I'm doing. I mean, the Rover is so nice underneath, it's given me a real problem. But basically, the idea was that I buy a second car that I care less about, that I can drive in the winter and all weathers, when that Focus is one, out of the rain, so it doesn't blooming leak in the boot ever again because it's in a garage. That's me. Do you know, I'm fed up to the back teeth of it. I'm all for getting rid of the cause, not dealing with the symptoms. So, like, people drill holes at the bottom of the boot if they've got a water leak. And I just think that's not solving the problem. That's just lazy. I know that it's ideal that water goes in and doesn't stay there. You want it to go in, pass through, and go straight back out. Okay, I get that. But honestly, deal with the problem. Just stop it coming in the first place. And I've got to the point now where I actually really don't care about stopping it. I'm just going to put it in the garage and not drive it in the rain ever again. And to be fair, when I get the other side resprayed, no chance. Winter, rain, no. It'll be a nice weather car where I can enjoy driving it. And then the second car can be the car that basically takes the flak, and I don't care about it. The issue with the Rover is that, and you'll see this if you watch the Rover videos, it's actually starting to turn out into a really, really nice car. And I'm a bit concerned that I've just inherited a car that is even more tidy than the Focus was about a year or so ago. That is a problem, because now I've got two cars that I care about, potentially. So I need to get a third car. Maybe I should get maybe I should get an early Mark II Focus, that 1.6 that works, but I'm not going to care about it because I don't like the early Mark IIs. They do not look nice. Bad build quality. Now they've got to an old age. Now they're just as common in the scrapyards. Yeah. Yeah, I'd have a Mark II. Mark IIIs would still be too expensive. But Mark IIs are cheap. I won't care a damn. Maybe that's what my third car will be. I've no doubt that my subscribers will then start telling me, you've got to restore that one as well. No chance. There's some cars I won't touch. And that's the point. Indicators in the headlights looking great. H7 versus Hold H4 bulbs. I did not know that the pre-facelift used these H4 bulbs, the bigger ones. Oh my God. I did not know that. I know that most cars use H7s, but I didn't know that they were still using H4s. That's unbelievable, that is. They're quite expensive, they are as well, H4s. I went to Halfords for some ages ago and they're quite dear. I reckon that sort of stuff, you will not get them at Halfords for too long. And your motor factors, you'll have to go on eBay and specialist places to get H4s. My Rover P6 used H4s. Quite a few classic cars use them. Mr. Ben, fair point about the money, RE money. I'm already getting a bit precious about my 2.5 Focus. They're nice. See, I'll have a 2.5 and I'd actually care about it because they look decent. I don't know what they got wrong with a Mark II Focus. They really just went, oh. They tried to create a more grown-up, hunkered down car that more people would like, and they didn't. And then the 2.5. I love it because the 2.5 has got a lot of things that the Mark III has. For instance, they changed the door mirrors on the Mark IIs are very small and are very tacky, whereas they changed them to the big fat ones off a Mark III. They look quite in keeping with actually that size of car. Just little things like that with the integral indicators in the door mirrors. And I think that's a nice touch as well. I do like the indicators in the door mirrors. Sounds like you've got the same problem with the Rover. It's true. It's really true. I mean, I could just buy another car and I enjoy that and love that as well, like I probably will, and just spread the mileage around. I don't know. I don't know. I'll feel better when the Rover is fully rust treated underneath, and I do intend to sort that out. The Bellamy, I agree. The pre-facelift is a lot smarter looking. The facelift is a lot smarter looking. The older ones are droll looking at the front, but the condition and mileage made me go for it. Oh, Joe, go for it, go for it, go for it. I mean, as I say, it's just a little thing that wasn't. It just doesn't look quite as interconnected. I think the Mark 1.5, as they call it, I don't refer to it as that really. It's actually a case of the facelift version being better than the original, bit better looking, which is not very often the case. It's usually a compromise. It's just usually something to just keep the model going for a couple of years before the brand new model comes out. Bellamy, currently in the garage having a full exhaust currently in the garage having full exhaust due to some nice person cutting it. Oh God, cutting the cat off, bastards. You know, I hate that. Honestly, that's the scum of the earth. Yeah, we had someone. We had a few cars down there have their cats nicked, and goodness me, I don't know why they didn't take the Rovers, because the Rover was on four. Well, it's now on the ground, but it was on 4-axle stands for about a month with the cat like there. It was an easy picking. Literally, take you 2 seconds to cut off the cat, and the original cats on the Rovers are very, very good and very expensive. Second hand, you're looking about 80, 90 pounds, and that's not in that scrap. I think that's scrap money as well. Oh, it's horrible, that is. I really feel for you, because that's just scum. That is just for a few quid, and the way they go about it. To be fair, there was actually something in. I'm in a local group where I live. We've got like a neighbourhood group, and there was actually a post of somebody and a local who lives in the area actually getting caught cutting people's cats off. The way he was caught was he was actually in the middle of cutting someone's cat off when his jack actually failed. Now, luckily, he's not a big bloke, otherwise he'd be dead. He was quite a thin bloke, but he was pretty wedged underneath the car, and yeah, he got nicked. Fair play, fair justice. I thought, do you know what? That's the best thing I've seen on that particular day. I thought that's pure justice for every single bastard who thinks it's right to take your cat. And I've got to be honest with you, Focus cats, Mark 1 cats, are not that good. The originals are okay, but most of them will not have the originals unless they cut the original off, which is why I think they might have done it. But if it's an aftermarket one, I've got one on mine. I mean, it's been on the car 4 years and it still works, and it probably pass an MOT. We'll find out February how it does in the emissions. They do tend to be a little bit thin on the ground with precious metals, which is why they're cheap. Cheap cats don't last as long. Simple as that. The cat that replaces it, when it does decide to go, it'll be a really good one. I'll try it. It'll be expensive, but I'm keeping. I don't intend to sell the car, so. Well, hold on, you should. I've lost the plot there. Full exhaust. What engine is your? What engine is yours? 1.6. That should only be the cat section, which is basically sleeved to the middle section. There should be a sleeve, clamps, a sleeve and 2 clamps. Shouldn't need to have the middle section looked at, unless you're thinking about doing that as well, because that section looks a bit rotten or there's holes. Mr. Ben, Mark II Focus just looks a bit bland in comparison to the Mark V. Yeah, it is bland. At the front, it's just, I don't know what they were thinking. They were trying to be more grown up, but they just ended up being like something different. No. I'd have to get, do you know what? I wouldn't mind long term doing a review. Might review your car if you'll let me. I'll do a review on a Mark II or Mark 2.5, and I'll do a little bit of comparison. I like to own one, to be fair. I like to own a 2.5, not a 2. Even was the dashboard the same? Yeah. Did they change the dashboard when it became the 2.5? I'm can't think. Is that? I'm sure they changed something in the interior. Rust-free focus from southern Italy. That's the key. No salt, no snow, no rain, no rust. Wouldn't we all? Wouldn't we all? We just in the UK, we just don't live in that climate. Mr. Ben, cat thief wedged under a car, poetic justice. It literally is. You couldn't have asked for a better timing. The jack giving in. Just goes to show, though, please have axle stands when you're under a car. I used to take so many stupid risks. Honestly, if you're going to go under a car without axle stands because you either can't be bothered to get them, which is usually the reason, or you haven't got access to them for whatever reason, make sure that the wheels are actually on. Make sure you've got the wheels on, because at least it lands on the wheels, not on you. Because, well, you won't know about it. You'll be dead. The Bellamy just left the back box there, so couldn't tell until I started it up. Got a brand new cat for 60 odd quid. So the original ones are obviously made of something more precious. Yeah, they are. They will probably fetch decent money, the original ones. I mean, apparently the Rover ones are just the same, the originals. It's not uncommon for actually on Rover 45s and 25s to have the original cats even now. I know a few who've got V-Reg, W-Reg early 45s, and they've still got the original cats, and they sail through the MOT. I mean, that one's only done 50. So based on how many miles that cat's done, plenty of life. It's got a pre-cat on it. They got the manifold. It's got a pre-cat. I don't know what that's about. I don't understand much about pre-cats. But 60 quid is quite cheap. But then that's what I paid for mine, actually. The cat on mine was 60 quid, and it was a cheapo. I shouldn't have done that in hindsight, but I've had mine 4 years, and I've done about 13,000 miles, low mileage. Now, I've been told they last about 25,000 miles, the aftermarket ones. That could be about right. You'll soon know if it's the telltale sign of a Mark 1 when your cat is just going, it's not quite doing its job as much as it used to, is the P0420 code. And that is the cat below efficiency. And it will be triggered, and I'll tell you when it's triggered, when you drive at 40 miles an hour for more than 1 minute. That's when the system, the ECU, goes through a test cycle. So when you drive at 40 miles an hour, it starts a test cycle, and it tests all sorts of things, including the rear oxygen sensor. It will go through a test mode, and then if the cat is not working to efficiency, bang, code. So that's when it comes on. Mr. Ben, Mark 2.5 dashboard is different to the Mark 2. Welcome to have a look at my car. That will be on the card set. It'll be a pleasure. I will be meeting you this year, like a few people. Nice to put a face to the name, because you're all names at the moment. I know I've got you on Messenger, but yeah, just nice to put a face to the name. I'm a people person. You know what? This is great. This is a lovely way of communicating with people, but I've got to get out to shows. So both of them better work, because I've got shows planned for the pair of them. The Bellamy. Yeah, Mr. Ben, have you had a Rover? Sorry, did you tell me you owned a Rover, or you used to? I might have got that confused with somebody else. I've had quite a few people messaging me recently. Because the intention is April, I will be going to the Pride of Longbridge in the Rover if I get the MOT done. I mean, it should be done by then. If that car is not ready for the Pride of Longbridge, some catastrophe has happened with that engine, which I doubt. But But I will be at the Pride of Longbridge. No doubt sticking my head behind a GoPro. It is a different dashboard. Oh, you've not owned a Rover, Mr. Benson. Okay, I've got you confused with somebody else then. Mark 2.5 dashboard. I thought you may have done, and you may be going to the Pride of Longbridge. I got that confused with somebody else. Sorry about that. Mark 2.5 dashboard is different. Right, okay. I thought it was in some respect. I don't know how many changes they made, but I'm sure they were very different. They certainly did. I remember now. My friend's got a Mark 2.5. I should know that. It's just something I've not picked up on. But it seems very well put together. You start on Mark 1, and no matter how well looked after no matter how new the engine mountings are, there's always that hint of vibration and harshness to the car. Just a little bit. And then at a 2.5, you start the car and same 1.6, you hardly hear the engine, hardly feel it under your feet. It's very well dampened. And I think that with the Mark III, they went a step further, and in a Mark III, you can barely hear that old 1.6. I mean, to be fair, it is an asthmatic engine in such a heavy car, but you could barely hear it with all the sound deafening. They really did. They did do a good job with that, because that's quite important with cars. But I noticed in the Mark III, the engine is mounted so far away from the bulkhead. I don't know if that was deliberate. The Bellamy, it's a 1.6 auto. Oh, exactly like mine then. Welcome to the club. There's not many of our cars around, I'll tell you. Automatics are very much of a rarity. They've cut the very bottom of the front where it comes down from the engine. There's a flange. Oh, sorry. They've cut the very bottom of the front where it comes down from the engine, but for some reason took the whole middle as well, leaving the back box hanging. What? Why would they do that? These guys, I don't get that. You just cut. You cut as little off as possible. You don't need to go back there and cut. I don't get why they've done that. Oh, bastards. They can't even do it properly. I mean, it's all good for nicking your cat, but at least do it properly and take the fucking cat and not anything else. Jesus. They can't even get good criminals these days. Oh, okay. Does that... have they cut... Where they said they've cut the bottom towards the front, do you mean... Have they cut after the flange or before the flange? Because there's a flange. You've got the downpipe with a flange that connects to the cat pipe. Have they cut above that? Because then you need to replace the manifold. I don't think they would have, because that's quite far up actually. It's difficult to cut. They'd have just cut right in front of the cat. But cutting way down there, why would you... Maybe they wanted more metal. Well, in that case, I don't know why they just didn't steal your back box, because if they've cut that far, they could have just slipped the back box out. Yes, spot on. Bit of vibration on the Mark 1. Mark 2 is softer, quieter, more refined, but lacks the sparkle on the steering and the handling. That is pretty much a good summing up of a Mark 2.5. There is something they just lost with every single generation of the Focus and the Fiesta as well. No, actually, Fiestas. No, actually, I got that wrong. I think Fiesta Mark 3s and 4s tend to be the best, but even then they were a bit lackluster. But with the Focus, every generation, it just diluted itself of what the car actually was. I mean, it was a reliable family car, and it became less reliable as time went on and more complicated. And Mark 4s, from what a few people have said, I think Alex said that his dad has a Mark 4 and he's had so many problems with it. They're not great, so the reliability factor's gone out, and the family car will. The rear seat room isn't great on a Mark IV, I do know that. It isn't great on a Mark III either, despite the fact it's a much fatter car. They just added more weight with, you know, all these crash standards that have to be met, the Euro NCAP. They just added and added and added, and it's just, I mean, the insulting thing is, I was actually looking forward to the Mark IV, because the Mark III had been out for some years, and then obviously they announced the Mark IV, and then when they revealed the back end of it, I thought they've just copied a BMW 1 Series. What the hell have they done? It's not a Focus. It's just a car with a Focus badge on it. It has no relation to the cars that have gone before. I mean, I'd argue that the Mark 2.5 is the last real Focus that they actually made. A real pointy and still really decently fun car to drive. Not as fun as a Mark 1, but it still retains all the characteristics. Somewhere along the line, they just got lost. And I think this aim that all manufacturers have of making a global platform, a car that can tick all the boxes in Europe, America, Asia, wherever you want, you end up with a car that it's a bit of a flat pancake. Everybody sort of likes a bit of it, but not all of it. And that's where it really was lost. I passed my driving test on a Mark III Focus. And do you know what? As I said to you in the last live stream, if you watched that, I went from a Mark III to a Mark 1 in the same month. So I passed my driving test in a Mark III and bought that car out there 3 weeks later. And it was a bit of a culture shock driving that car for the first time. I couldn't believe how wallowy, how it was pointy, but wallowy and soft and very childlike, playful. Whereas a Mark III was like health and safety on wheels. What can I say more than that? Right, I'm going to end the live stream there because I'm quite conscious that I've actually gone way too far, more than I wanted to. But do you know what? It goes for as long as it goes. The next time I do a live stream, it may be more centered on a more of a particular theme. I've just done a few random ones to get to know people, just chat about willy-nilly about cars, mainly Mark 1 Focuses, a bit of Rovers and a bit of everything else. And do you know what? I've met a load of lovely people like you guys. So I will see what sort of theme I can come up with. But yeah, I'm really blessed. I've had 15 people viewing this, which is remarkable considering the time I've done this live stream. Quite incredible. Mr. Ben, this is the way cars are going nowadays. Bland, no real personality. You got that right. There's just no personality with cars now. They're all the same. It's the same platform but different bodies. Arguably, actually, car manufacturers have gone back to coach building, because if you think back before I'd say pre-50, actually pre-war, pre-40s, coach building was a thing where you'd basically have, and it was the same with buses and coaches, you'd have a chassis or a platform, and every coach, you have different coach builders that will build their own personalized custom body on that chassis. And it's amazing the creativity that these coach builders had. You could literally have a completely different, the same chassis, but a completely different vehicle. It would obviously handle probably the same and go the same because it's the same infrastructure underneath, but the creativity was there. But manufacturers have gone back to that now. They share a platform and design the bodies to go on top, which is as simple as it is, but they do it to share. The fraud is that coach builders never used to claim that their vehicles were completely different. They always used to note that the chassis are very much, a tried and true chassis, but they would always market and advertise that and promote their own custom-made body, that this is handcrafted, built, this is, top quality. And that's what they used to push pre-war. And then it all became monocoques. Sparkle in steering and handling. That's why I bought a Mark 1 Focus in 2018. It is worth it. Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Ben, cheers, buddy. Yep, brilliant. All the best, sir. Have a really nice new year. If you are drinking, don't get too drunk, because I won't be. I'll try and stay sober tomorrow, he says. And then I get a text off one of my friends. Oh dear me, it's hard to say no, isn't it? The Bellamy, I couldn't understand it either. Yes, it's been cut just on the bend where it levels off. But that's okay, because then you'd have to replace the manifold. That's fine. There's not many autos about, especially with an X-Reg with a genuine 52. No, yours would be quite in a rare category. I'd a guess. I think there's about less than 1,000 pre-facelift automatics, something like that, because they only produced the Focus came out in September 1998. Thanks, Alex. Thanks, buddy. September 98, and the automatic versions did not come out until August 99. So they're in a slimline category there, I think. There'll be a few hundred. There'll only be a few hundred from your year, at least. Not even that. Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Alex. No problem, sir. You take care. Thank you, sir. And the Bellamy, take care, buddy. Right, I'm going to end this live stream. Thank you so much. I will see you probably for another live stream in about half a month, probably a couple of weeks. Things might be a bit slow from a Focus perspective. I'm just trying to spread the videos out a little bit, but hey, we'll see how we go on. Take care, guys. See you very soon. Now, I'm going to work out how to switch this off. I keep forgetting.